I was just like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I want to work with bands that I love and music that I love, and working for a label, you basically have to spread it out amongst everything. So I was ready for a new occupation, and a close friend, this guy Brendan Staples, had an epiphany talk with me and said, "Why don't you be a teacher?" And I'm like, I would have been the last guy you would have thought would go back to a high school, right? But it all made sense because I had a psychology and marketing background, and I was like, I would love to do it if I was working with older students. And he said, go back to the high school you worked at. So I did, loved it, got into the music thing of it, and then a job opportunity came up at Poway High School when I was in the midst of going through the whole teaching credential thing, and it was an ASB director position, which is you're in charge of the entire school's culture and school activities and all the dances and the proms and things to make students connect to a school, and you work with the leadership council of the school. So I'm like, wow, this could be really cool. This could be like the best hybrid of teaching and music and sociology and affecting a community. Like, I was really excited about that whole idea. So interviewed numerous times, got the job. I was the youngest ASB director hired in any of the schools in San Diego, North County. I was 23 at the time, and, which was cool. But I went in with a theory of, students are disconnected a bit from school. Like, school is school, and that's how I felt. And music and life outside of school is just something else. And I was like, what if you could just bring all that together? How cool would that be, So one of the aspects of the many that we did was we wanted to bring bands to the school twice a month. So it would either be bigger bands in the quad or smaller bands in the little theater. And, we kind of kicked that off into gear. And this girl that was my ASB class president at the time, Anna Massengill, was really close friends with Tom. I don't know if romantically, but because I know he was dating his previous wife, and she was a cheerleader at Poway High School. But anyway, not my business.
Right.
He was really excited to have them play at Poway High School, and I was like, that's cool, but I've got like a box full of 12 cassettes of these other bands that were all excited to come and play, and I had a bunch of connections with artists from smaller labels that wanted to have high school gigs and things like that, and so I'm like, we could do this possibly, but let's get something from them. So she got a cassette from him, the Buddha cassette. That's where I got that first Buddha cassette. And and then from there, Tom came in and he's like, hey, we really want to play, and what can we do to get on there? And I was like, well, he's really motivated. He was a very motivated guy, and I think he was working for a concrete trucking company gig at the time, and he had just stopped working for one of our swim and tennis clubs in the community, where basically you sit and check people in and play guitar all night. I'm sure he got some good practice on his guitar after a bit from doing that. And he was super excited. Like, we want to play in the quad. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. So you got to think this is 93, 94 zone, and schools are a little bit worried about mosh pits, right? Like, mosh pits were just starting to become a thing. Like, you got to understand that kind of era and time. Like, it was a hot thing for students to jump up in the, do what we know as mosh pitting. So, but I was trying to explain to the administration, I'm like, this isn't going to happen. Like, it's the middle of the day. It's our quad. Everyone's looking at everyone. They're not going to be jumping all over each other and, punching each other in the face. It's not going to happen. I had a contract with all, embedded into this, like, if anything becomes unrested amongst the groups, you got to stop the music. And we never had to do that. Everyone was super cool. So anyway, Tom was like, we'd love to do this. And I said, well, here's how we're going to do it. So we either had a sound system that we would bring in from this guy, Don from DSL, who Blink later went to record in their studio, his studio with him. But I was using him as a sound tech guy, and a live music guy. And so I could pay him $300 and he'd bring out a full live PA, or I'd offer to the bands if they had their own live PA. I'm like, you guys could pocket $300. And Tom was like, we'll pocket $300. And I'm like, good, you must have a good PA. And when they came, and it was our first gig that we did in the quad, we did a couple others inside of our little theater, but this is the first one we did in our quad, which means, it's open to everybody and it's a bigger gig. They didn't bring a live PA. They brought their amps and sang through his amp. And so that was brutal, because the drums were really loud and Mark's bass sounded pretty good, but Tom was just like, it was distorted through he's singing through his amp. And I'm like, God, you guys needed $300 pretty bad, didn't you?
Yeah. So, and I'm trying to visualize, like, what's a quad? Like, I didn't have that at my school. Is this like an open room, a courtyard? Like, how big is it?
So the last gig we did at Poway High Live was Mark was managing this band, River Phoenix, if you could see it.
Nice poster.
Yeah, and this ended up being their tour poster. So they played a gig in our quad where Mark was managing them. And the last gig I did as the ASB director in '99, River Phoenix comes and plays. And so they played in our quad, and then they ended up doing their tour posters in our quad. So that is our quad, and that's the background of our quad in the background. And then there's all kinds of small pictures down below it.
Interesting.
But they decided to do with the tour. My students popped a funny picture of another girl right there, but it's funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it's our cheerleaders behind these guys, which was kind of comical. And yeah, the quad is just an open air little arena, which is really cool. Actually, it was really cool. Now it's all filled in, so it doesn't look like anything like it did before. It's just a big flat concrete area, but it used to be this kind of grassy knoll enclave, and then it had a natural stage up above, which was really cool.
So timeline wise, when was this? I mean, you signed Blink to play at the quad, which is crazy.
What I love about your podcast, dude, is you are particular about chronological order and time. And so here it is. I laminated a bunch of this stuff way back in the day. I probably shouldn't have, but so it's got a little gloss to it. But this is Tom filling out the band contract.
Oh my gosh.
Quad, which would be November 22, 94.
Wow.
So yeah, and Anna Massengill right there. That's her little signature right there. She was at the time my ASB class president. She was a class president.
Man.